Hey, what's up friends? Hope you're doing well. I've got a little bit different video for you today. If you're not familiar with my channel, normally I'm all about drums, drum related things, but today I'm going to give you my opinion on what is the best bang for the buck kind of interview, talking head video setup for a video similar to what I'm doing right now. So a couple of disclaimers and explanations. I'm in a suit because I'm up here at my church. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're recording our worship services and then streaming them online. So I'm wearing what I would wear on a Sunday. And this video is for people that have contacted me, pastors, friends of mine that in the past haven't really been into video or had a need to invest into video like for this kind of thing, but are now finding themselves in a position where they need to create video content. So this is not a video with tons and tons of specs, in-depth stuff. I'm not going to be talking about a lot of technical things, although I'll be walking through everything that I create and everything that I'm doing to create this shot, what you're seeing right now. So first of all, let me tell you that this entire setup, if you were just to buy everything brand new on Amazon, is going to be about $1,000. That's what you're looking to spend. But if you want to not necessarily cut some corners, but buy some things on eBay, shop around, you can get this setup for around $700 as of today, which is April 28th, 2020. So let me walk you through the integral pieces of what I'm using to create this shot. I'm gonna give you kind of a brief summary of the equipment needed, and then I'm gonna break down what I'm doing to create this look and to kind of do what you're seeing. So first off, we're gonna start with the camera body, or the actual camera that I'm using, which is the Canon M50. This camera retails for around $579, although you can find it on eBay anywhere from $400 and $450. The second piece is the Viltrox Speed Booster. So this does two things. One, it's an adapter that allows this Canon small mirrorless camera, which uses the EFM, which is kind of Canon's small lenses. It adapts it to be able to use Canon's like bigger, more full frame lenses, which are higher quality, and there's a lot more variety of them, and you may already have some. So this is a Viltrox Speed Booster. It does that. It also opens up the camera and allows it to get a more shallow depth of field where the subject is really in focus and the background is blurry. It helps give you more of that for every lens. The next thing is the Canon EF 50mm lens. So I'm sorry, the Viltrox is $150 on Amazon. This 50mm lens is 125 bucks new. You can get it for about $100 used. Then the wireless lavalier that I'm using is the Movo, I guess I'll go on this side, the Movo VMX1. This is a great wireless lavalier for around $150. And then this light that I'm using is a Viltrox as well, Viltrox L116T, and it takes a Sony NPF battery. So this is about $30, and these batteries, you can get several of them for $20 or $30. Again, so this setup costs about $1,000 brand new for everything included. But if you want to purchase used, shop around on eBay. I found the camera body for $400. You can also get a wired lav. So this lavalier setup I think is $100 or $150. But you can buy a $15 or a $20 lavalier that connects directly to the camera. This just gives you more flexibility. You can buy cheaper lenses. There is a $50 kind of knockoff brand lens that does a similar thing that the Canon EF lens does. And there's other lights you can get cheaper. You don't have to buy lighting. You can just use lighting that you have. So there's a lot of things that you can do to cut down on that cost. And so let me go over kind of the pros and cons of some of these things, and then I'm going to get into exactly how I'm creating this look on the M50. So pros and cons of the M50 itself. So the pros, number one, is price. For the price, the image quality is great, phenomenal image in my opinion. Again, as you're seeing right now, this is the image that you get at 1080p. So for around $400, there's, in my opinion, not really a better camera body that can do what this camera does. So image quality is great, price is great, ease of use is great. It's very simple to use. The selection of lenses that you can attach to it are great. Even just the EFM lenses, which are the mirrorless system, but with an adapter like the Viltrox Speed Booster, you can use the bigger Canon lenses. So all those things are, to me, really big pluses. So now some cons of the M50. The number one for this purpose is that it has a recording time limit. So it can only record 30 minutes. So also, let me make another disclaimer. This video is not for people that are into streaming, okay? So this is more for people that want to record and then post. So a lot of times for like our student ministry, I'm recording videos, mixing them, and then posting them or streaming them premiered to Facebook or live to Facebook. This is not necessarily meant for broadcasting or streaming live, although a lot of the components could transfer over, but the intent of this video is for people that are trying to record video and then produce it. So in that sense, this could be a con. If you're trying to record a 1 hour long clip, this will stop at 30 minutes. I believe there may be some software that you can download to bypass that, but I haven't done so. And as it comes, it has a 30-minute record limit. The next downside is it doesn't have great 4K ability. So one thing that Canon is really known for is their dual pixel autofocus, meaning this thing is going to track me really, really well. If I scoot in, which the light is super bright, it's going to track my face and stay in focus. As I move back, it's going to adjust the lighting automatically, but it's going to keep my face in focus pretty much no matter where I go. It's tracking me as I go. So Canon does a really great job of that. And this camera, though, if you switch to 4K, you lose that dual pixel autofocus. It goes to a contrast-based autofocus. It's not very reliable. Also, in 4K, the image crops in a lot. So the 4K is not great, but again, for me, I'm not producing in 4K, editing in 4K. And if you're getting into videography and stuff, 4K is probably not going to be your best friend. 1080p is going to be a great option for you. So let's jump into the other pieces of equipment, specifically the speed booster and the lens. Those may be some of the things you're not familiar with, and then how to work your camera settings, what to do, what video recording settings you need to use. The lavalier is very simple. Pretty much all I do is I plug it into the mic jack of the camera. I flip both of them on. A blue light turns solid blue, meaning they're connected, and I just run a gun. I have the camera settings on auto. I've got this on auto. What I did to test it is it has a volume on the unit. I turned it up a couple points to see how the camera handled it. I turned it down a couple times, just kind of trial and error. I listened back and I found a setting that I liked, but pretty much I'm running everything that I can on auto. Now, the more you get into videography, you're going to run a lot of these settings manual, but I have a couple manual settings, but I have as many things as I can set to auto to make it easy to show you how I'm getting the shot. So let me talk to you a little bit more about the speed booster and the lens itself. So the speed booster controls two things. One, it controls the crop of the camera. So this is an APS-C camera, basically meaning that the sensor or the thing that captures the image is a little bit smaller, so it automatically punches in all the images versus like some of the more expensive cameras. So if you put a lens on here, say if it's a 50mm lens, that lens is actually going to be cropped in, I think it's at 1.5 or something like that, like 1.5 times zoomed in versus what it actually says. So, which is not necessarily bad if you're doing a shot like this because you can frame yourself wherever you want to. But the Viltrox Speed Booster reduces some of that crop, so it gives you a wider image. But the biggest thing for me, the most important thing for a speed booster versus just an adapter is it actually gives you more aperture. So three things that control an image and the way the image looks. Number one is aperture. So that's the f-stop. So the lower that number, the shallower the depth of field, meaning that the focus is really, really crisp and the background, as you see, is super, super blurred. So right now I'm shooting at f1.4 and the more contrast I can create between the subject and the background, the more blurred that's going to give you that kind of nice cinematic, if you will, look. So the speed booster gives you extra aperture, so no matter what lens you put on it, different lenses can go to different apertures. So the speed booster gives you more. It's almost like I guess like a reverse magnifying glass. Like it zooms out and then also gives you more, opens up where the lens can look at it. So the aperture is almost like your eye. Like you open an eye, allow more light in, and therefore it's a shallower depth of field. The second thing is ISO, which is a setting. Simply, it's kind of like digital light. So ISO is something, if it's so dark you can't see, you can increase the ISO to push more light into the image that it's not being captured. So that's kind of like electronic light, if you will. And then finally is shutter speed. So in a picture, shutter speed is how long it stays open to allow more light to come in. For video, basically it's a simple rule. You want your shutter speed to be double what your frame rate is. So frame rate, another thing that's kind of confusing. I know I'm moving really quickly, but hopefully this is helpful and makes some sense. Frame rate, you can shoot in different frame rates. So 24 frames per second is the most natural frame rate. So if you get 60 frames per second, which the M50 can shoot at, that's when, when I move my hands, the motion blur is reduced where it looks almost choppy, where 24 frames a second is very natural motion blur. So for our purposes, we're gonna shoot at 24 frames a second. So let me hop back and record what you're actually seeing on the camera and show you how to set up the settings to get a look like this one. Okay, so first of all, we turn on the camera and I switch to this movie mode here. And one thing about the M50, you'll notice that the screen's gonna go black. If I put my finger or something in front of this electronic viewfinder, the screen goes black. You can change that. So what I'm gonna do is here's the movie options. I'm gonna click manual. That means I wanna set my own settings. Okay, so we go in here. And so first of all, I'm gonna pull up this options menu. Sorry guys, this is so informal. Pull up this options menu. And there's a lot of stuff that's gonna greet me. I'm gonna pretty much set up as many things as I can on auto. So for instance, we're gonna start here at the top left. I've got this is autofocus method. I'm gonna do autofocus plus tracking. Right here, this is our movie record size. So I'm doing full HD, 23.98 or 24 frames a second. Okay, so standard 19 by 1080, 23.98 frames a second. That door's opening on me. Okay, so the next thing, let's see, I'm gonna pull up here. So I got my record size, like I said. All right, then over here we have white balance. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing auto white balance. I've just left it on auto. So this is a picture setting. All right, picture style is what they call it. So there's a bunch of different styles you can choose from. Faithful, monochrome, user default 1, user default 2. I go over here to this setting, it's FD, fine detail. So what it does is it kind of makes it a little bit sharper, and it's just kind of otherwise it's a good image. Auto light optimizer, I leave that off. And then miniature movie effect, I don't want that either. So now we get into shooting, we're doing 24 frames a second. This is our shutter speed. So basically we want this number 50 to be about double our frame rate. So meaning we're shooting at 24 frames a second. It can't go to 48, but 50 is the closest thing. All right, then this f-stop here. Since I'm shooting with the Viltrox Speed Booster, this 50 millimeter lens is a f1.8 lens. So it is going to give me, it's a great lens, a low light lens. Now another, I guess, downside of this is you can't zoom in or out. This is what's called a prime or fixed lens. It's a fixed length. You can't zoom in or out. You can only focus. But the good thing is, for very cheap, you get a very, very sharp image because of that. Also, this lens is not good for handheld shooting because it does not have any stabilization in the lens itself. But for our purposes, this is f1.8, but then with the Viltrox adapter, I can actually get it down to f1.2 if I want to, but I was shooting at f1.4. So again, what that's gonna do, if I zoom in here, I'm gonna go ahead and hit record, and I'm shooting, I got my lens here. That's gonna give me that great shallow depth of field between the lens and the background. Now, if I were to crank this up a little higher, you'll see it change. And again, the subject is really far away from the background. So no matter what, I'm gonna get a pretty good shallow depth of field. But if I started to crank this up to like, f8, which the higher I go with the aperture, the more the camera's gonna have to compensate for that. So, but now you can see it's really dim, but then also, the background is not blurred out. So the lower I go, the more blur I'm gonna get out of that background, okay? And then finally here on the ISO, you can set this. It's smart if you have help, if you can kind of set this to a constant amount, which again, this is kind of the digital light we can push into the image. But honestly, I just have it set to auto, and I'm trusting the camera to figure it out. Sometimes that bites you, but if you're shooting by yourself, sometimes it may be the only option that you have. So again, those are the camera settings that I'm using to get this look. To me, I think it looks really good.